Hey, and we are live. Welcome to Live Before Lock. It is Friday, March 20th. We have a 5-game slate on our hands on DraftKings, the full bag on FanDuel. Appreciate these guys for keeping that in sync today. Jerks. And we got a lot to talk about because it is a very difficult slate, or at least I see it as a very difficult slate. Very flat, not a lot separating. That could change. We have tons to talk about over the next hour. So hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell so you know when everything goes live, and follow us both on Twitter at Josh Engleman, at Chris Spags. What's going on, Boat?
Glad to be here with you on a Friday. You know, it's always a nice way for me to wrap up the working week. And this slate, like Josh mentioned, we were talking about it before the show. Like, I really do enjoy, crappy basketball, or what people will call crappy basketball. Like, I enjoy these guys getting opportunities. I enjoy guys coming up from the G League, chucking, getting their shots to kind of make their bones in the league. It's just not fun right now. We're not getting fun guys in. We're getting the worst players like the Nets. It's just a bunch of dudes that all score 0.8 fantasy points a minute, do nothing remotely fun. And, there's a ton of opportunity left behind with, Michael Porter Jr., no Igor Dioman, Cam Thomas long gone, no Noah Clowney even. And, there's like nobody's going to fill up those stats in a real way. So you end up playing Zaire Williams types. Like, it's just not where I want to be. Like, even Jared Butler, like, where's the Jared Butlers? Where's the 30% usage rate guy, 30% assist rate guy who like has some priors, but is totally buried on the bench? He's in Europe, I think now. I don't know, Josh. It's like, I'm with you. I don't feel the love for the trash players this year, but it is still a chance to win money, and people not paying enough attention because the NCAA tournament is sure.
There's a lot of trash out there today, and we are going to talk about most of it throughout this day. Let's start with a guy that I don't think made anybody very happy yesterday, and that's going to be Dennis Jenkins, 5,500 point guard only for Detroit. Obviously, no Cade Cunningham here. Dennis Jenkins, half the lineups, 50-50 optimal, 35% boom score today. You going right back to Dennis Jenkins. He is the only true breakaway player today for now.
Yeah, I'm a little bit lower on Dennis Jenkins, just functionally, like at his price tag. I think there's enough ways to go that aren't him at as much ownership as he's, accumulating right now. I'd have him as being, for me, negative 25% leverage play, but that still means getting him in like 40% of my lineup. So I'm not totally out in him, just not quite as high as the 55% you're getting on Stochastic, a little bit higher if you're running their sim. But I would say, for how Jenkins looks, the fact that he went, 3 for 15, last time out against Washington, like he's not going to be that bad again, most likely. Certainly if you get Duren out, you'll get more opportunity flowing his way as well. Paul Reed and him, I think would be very obvious plays to look at a little bit more. But I feel like for Dennis Jenkins, like he's been a good enough player this year. I mean, visually, he kind of fits a lot of what I'm looking for in terms of this guy getting usage, unafraid to get shots up, even as he is playing terribly versus the Wizards, and still creates assists, no Sasser as well. So there isn't a natural lever to kind of take minutes away from him. So I'm cool with Jenkins, Josh. And I feel like too, the field maybe won't be quite as high as they were yesterday just because of the fact he did bust so meaningfully, but he got the shots. Like the role was there for him. He just didn't hit.
I assume if we lose some of this Detroit stuff, we'll like him, or we'll at least feel like significantly more confident in him if Detroit breaks a different way. I don't love him either at this ownership number. I would want like a little bit sturdier of a boom rate than what we're seeing right now. And I think there could be other versions of him at different positions. He scares the hell out of me at the moment. I'm not a fan, but if he's not the chalk, like he obviously in a cash game, he's the first name you're clicking at the moment. After that, I don't know where you go to prioritize something. So that's my next question to you. Let's ignore Dennis Jenkins for the moment, since he is a unicorn for the slate right now. Where do you focus your eye? Because if you look at just the salaries here, 8,400, 5,500, 6,200, 4,700. There's nothing substantial anywhere today. So what gets your gaze?
Against my gaze. I'll go from there. It's not an Eric Stream. We can't make those kind of jokes. I think for the projection matrix that I have going right now allows me to see positions kind of flattened out a little bit, where I could say like, okay, this guy at point guard is 70% sim rate, on a normal slate, everybody else is at 20. So I like this player more. Some of the chalk we've had lately would fit that criteria. On this slate though, I've really got nobody at all being above a 50%, sim win rate in terms of standing out. I would say, for this slate, Mitchell Robinson, despite the fact that Cat is in, still looks like one of the best plays in the slate to me in terms of just building around that value at 4,300. The fact that he's facing the Nets, obviously, can get some more shots because they can't hit many shots. So rebounds should be available for him. Easy shots at the rim should be available for him. That's potentially some blocks and steals against a really bad Nets team. It should be available for him. But it's like Mitchell Robinson is a backup center. And I feel like, Josh, for me, one of the tells of like if a slate's going to be good or not is what value you're getting. Are you getting that Jamal Shed, Goga Batadze, backup center value, the Mitchell Robinson value we have today? Or are you getting like a starter stepping into a real role at 3,500, 4K, whatever? Like we don't have that ladder at all right now. So Mitchell Robinson types of guys stand out more. And so help me if Naz Reid is out somehow, like the center looks even worse. So like two of my highest exposed centers, I think potentially are going to be Mitchell Robinson and Jock Landale. Unless, Paul Reed opens up, then it's all going there. But, there's no good value. So the cheap center value is where I'm going to the most, unfortunately.
And that's typically a pretty good place to go just because the bigger you are, the more likely you are to be a better per minute fantasy performer. And you're like, we've got Mitchell Robinson at the top of the list today as our best point per dollar play. And he's just normal old Mitchell Robinson today. Just like, it's not any different experience. It's not like the Knicks are missing 5 dudes. Like he's just normal Mitchell Robinson, 23-minute projection. That's the best value piece that we have today. That's crazy, especially for like the rest of what's going. And honestly, it's only Dennis Jenkins on his corner, and then there's nobody around him. There really isn't a single good point per dollar thing today. Maybe that's the problem here for Dennis Jenkins. I want to see what our optimal is right now and like sort of what it pays up for, because I haven't looked at this in a bit. Dennis Jenkins, Bones Highland, Denny, Naz Reid, Mitchell Robinson, Ty Jerome, Jason Tatum, Kristaps Porzingis. Is there a name in there you don't like at all?
I wouldn't say not like at all, just to get relative to the slate where it is a pretty flat slate, sort of hard to critique anybody too much. Porzingis, I mean, at 25 minutes probably being the ceiling, it does feel a little bit gross. I mean, maybe he could play more with post out. I don't think it's possible though, or the most likely thing in the world. He's been such a great contributor, like per minute wise, with Al Horford being off the court as well in particular, and also just him being better, closer to full health. It seems like with how he's played lately. Like Porzingis as an optimal play, I don't know. I mean, that's like a cash game play for sure. But for tournaments, I just feel like Porzingis, even though he does have that ceiling and put up 2 fan sports minute like he did a couple games ago, the fact that he's like potentially chalky because center's that bad, to me, that makes like your Naz Reid, Landale tier, Mitchell Robinson tier, that makes them more appealing because like if Fields going to play Porzingis that much, I just don't know. It's a great idea.
Yeah, it's such an interesting push-pull because if Jalen Duren is out, then I really do like Kristaps Porzingis, and I think the matchup starts to look a lot more interesting. If Jalen Duren is in, I am nervous at that point about Kristaps Porzingis, and I think that swing is really interesting. Not to mention, Jalen Duren on his own is already 25% owned, 25% optimal. So that, to me, is like the biggest swing piece of all of it. My interest in Kristaps Porzingis is totally dependent on Duren. Yeah. Do you think Duren plays?
I don't know, man. I mean, he didn't play a lot yesterday. Like they did, cut off the fourth quarter stint for him, which is part of what kept him from getting to probably the 50 fantasy points he would have gotten otherwise. But I think for him, I don't know. He's a gamer for sure, but they've been willing to play him or set him rather on some of these situations in the past and just go with Paul Reed, play him, play Tolu Smith as a backup. I really don't have a lean. The total would make me think he plays, but I don't know. How do you feel about that? Because I feel like your Vegas total model usually gives you a pretty good read on that stuff.
I kind of feel like he's going to play. It's too fun if he doesn't. Honestly, it's better to me. It's better if he doesn't play. Paul Reed at 4,200. Like, just make that kind of easy. Switch the slate up a little bit. But I kind of just assume that he's going to be in, and I'm mildly interested in Jalen Duren. I mentioned this on the strategy show earlier today, and it holds true right now. I think Jalen Brown is getting slept on a bit. 9K guard forward eligibility, just 15% owned, half the ownership and optimal of Tatum today. Like, I mean, the fact that we're still getting Jason Tatum at 8,500 is really fun, but I love that position for Jalen Brown. Like, who's on his corner? I guess we're comparing Denny and Jalen Brown from a positional standpoint, and like 2.5 to 1 on Denny. I'm not sure I agree.
Yeah, I'm getting 2x the field on Jalen Brown right now. So I do agree
Attaboy.
with you. Yeah, I mean, I did kind of struggle with his usage rates because they have been down a little bit. I mean, actually, a appreciable amount since Jason Tatum came back. But last game, coming back to life a little bit more there. I mean, he was one of the highest usage rate guys in the league before Tatum came back in, hovering around 36, 37%. Now we're, pretty much close to flat 36, and it's creeping down. But going against Memphis, like, we saw Josh Giddey, obviously, not the totally analogous situation because Giddey had nobody left on that team basically around him. You still have, the Celtics being mostly full strength, but that kind of upside is there for a guy like Jalen Brown if he takes usage away, in a meaningful way from Tatum, or they just, they play well enough in the amount of staggered minutes they have. So Jalen Brown, I'm with you on. I just don't think the pay-up option is super appealing between Jalen Johnson, Jalen Brunson at 9,500. Nice matchup on paper, but that price tag is so high, for a guy who has been banged up lately. Cat playing, but 9,200, you're paying so much for a guy who, doesn't have to play his full run today if he doesn't feel well. So I think Jalen Brown, just by process of elimination, especially if Duren were out, Brown to be the best play by a decent margin to me. I mean, Tatum, I think also pretty close. Avdia, not too far off.
In the games where Jason Tatum and Jalen Brown have both played so far this season, 1.31 fantasy points per minute for Jalen Brown, down slightly for the year. Tatum at 1.37. The big piece here is that Jalen Brown's usage rate has dropped by, 6 points, which clearly isn't surprising. You would fully expect it. Jalen Brown up an assist and a half per 100 possessions in that time with Tatum on. I don't know what to make of that. That's probably a little noisy. I don't expect him to just become a point guard, but because he's averaging 9.1 assists per 100 possessions. That's a massive number. He's also been really efficient since Tatum came back. Maybe he feels it a little bit differently. I'm just surprised to see these guys be like twice, or like a 2x gap in their data. I'm fascinated by Jalen Brown tonight. Just feels like he's getting slept on.
The one thing with Tatum, I think it just seems, looking at his true shooting on the year, being under 53%, I think, or 52, whatever it is. I don't have it in front of me right now. But being that low, he's going to shoot better. Jalen Brown, I think we're still kind of seeing him find his depth with Tatum being back. But I think they both have big upside. And right now, like you mentioned there, Tatum being 10% more owned, a little bit more than that. Like, to me, they're both 30, 33% plays. And I think Brown's not getting that respect, but Tatum, clearly is.
I think the boom score on Denny Avdia is really interesting. 31.5%. Meanwhile, Jalen Brown is at 24. Like, that just feels big for a 39% ownership gap to 16. Feels disproportionate. Give me some Jalen Brown. Or do you want to go all the way to the top to the only true pay up option on the day, $10,600 Jalen Johnson? Tough matchup, 7% owned, 8.5% optimal. Are you going to the tippy top today against the Rockets?
I'm getting him above the field, getting 13% of him right now. I mean, Field's at 8, so it's not the biggest stand, but getting a little bit more, I think, makes sense. I mean, it's a good spot just in terms of, them being down. Obviously, no more Porzingis, no more Trae Young at this point, that they've been gone for a while, but that always helps out Jalen Johnson's rates. Kuminga, as the chat's pointing out, his role was shifting down too, but getting that anything away from what it was when he first started out is a positive for Jalen Johnson. But it's a tough matchup going against Houston. Like, I think you're getting the discount you should get accounting for the matchup. He is the only guy I have in the slate projected over 50 fantasy points on DK. So like, that's a positive for him, but at 10-6, you're kind of paying, full freight to get that. I think he's a player getting above the field on by a little bit, especially if you're 150 maxing. I think makes a lot of sense. In one entry, I probably don't put him in a 20 max. I might get him like 20% in a 20 max based on my final entries, just because he does have that ceiling. But yeah, people hate the match with Houston. That kind of makes it more appealing, but they hate the match with Houston because it's a terrible matchup, and that's not great for Jalen Johnson.
Yeah, he's tricky today because Brunson and Towns are creating this like giant salary hole from Jalen Johnson until you get to Jaylen Brown. Brunson, 9,500, 1.5% owned, 2% optimal. Karl Anthony Towns, 2% owned, 2% optimal. Like, no one is getting to the New York Knicks guys for obvious reasons. The expectation is that they just beat the shit out of the Nets and they don't play a ton. And then you end up at Jaylen Brown. So there's a $1,600 gap between Jalen Johnson and Jaylen Brown. The problem with getting to Jalen Johnson is what we talked about to start this show off. There's not a lot to pay down to that makes you feel better about getting to Jalen Johnson. Our value is minimal. I think Mitchell Robinson almost definitely ends up in a lot of versions of Jalen Johnson lineups. I'm quite confident that if I lock Jalen Johnson here, he will end up in a lineup with Mitchell Robinson and a lot more slop that we don't want. Danish Jenkins, Bones, Denny, Porzingis, Naz Reid, Mitchell Robinson. So all of that looks consistent. Scoot ends up in the optimal lineup if you play Jalen Johnson. And you only really give up 3 fantasy points and you get back 25% in ownership. I think we just talked ourselves at least a little bit into what Jalen Johnson is in a large field GPP.
Yeah, I mean, the ceiling is huge, and just it being a tough spot doesn't mean that he can't put up a triple double. Doesn't mean that he can't have one of those outlier days. But yeah, like I think the projection being lower, I mean, than it should be, with the kind of situation he's in today. I think that'd be a positive for him in most spots. To play in Houston, you're just not really getting that boost the same way. But yeah, like he's probably got. I mean, would you say he's got the biggest ceiling on the slate? I feel like that's not. I think it's a hot take. I would have him scoring 60 plus the most. I mean, almost 2 times as often as Jaylen Brown does.
Yeah, I think he has to be that person today.
Yeah, so that alone justifies his existence on the slate, I think, and getting it at single-digit ownership. It's an ugly slate, but like I think you pointed out with that lineup you built, like it's really you're not taking on anything that's super chalky to get there necessarily. It still could be unique enough, and yeah, like you're just giving up what 0.1 of a value metric. Like who cares?
Not to mention, like it's one of the 8:00 games, so worst case scenario, you don't have to keep it. Like it's a different conversation, I think, if they're if that was the only game at lock, but. You're locking the Knicks-Nets game. Nobody gives a shit about Brunson and Towns today. Not that they can't be awesome, just that they're not interesting DFS plays. The Pistons news should be incoming, and that's going to really change the scope of the next 40 minutes of this show. But I'm happy parking some ownership on both Jaylen Brown and Jalen Johnson because I expected that you had to give up more to get to the best version of him. And you just didn't. 3 points was not really as much as I was expecting to see. So I do kind of like that pay up to be contrarian path, even in a matchup that's like not necessarily ideal for him.
Yeah, I mean, just looking at the pure ownership of like Jalen Johnson through Jaylen Brown, I mean, you're talking combined 25% or so ownership for the top 4 guys. Like that never happens. And it just means that people are going to be off the beaten path of lineups that, look like ones that would include one of them, let alone 2 of them. Like if you get 2 and they hit, I mean, that's going to be pretty unique on the slate. And that doesn't usually happen with your pay up options.
Ankle Breaker wants us to sim a lineup. I am seeing this at a time where I can do it today and not just wait it out until one of your guys gets ruled out like we did yesterday. Deadass Jenkins. I don't know if that's autocorrect or not, but I hope so. Also, how much do you type dead ass in your phone?
Honestly, that should be his nickname. Like I think dead ass Jenkins that's not bad. Sounds like more like a podcast host, but I don't hate it.
Yeah, it's obviously going to be his nickname on this show moving forward. So Bones, Highland, Jason Tatum. This should sim out pretty well. Amen Thompson is the highest projected guy here by a mile. Let's see it. Deadass Jenkins, Levert, Denny, Porzingis, Mitchell Robinson, Bones, Tatum, Amen Thompson, 16% sim ROI, 0.1% chance to win, 35% cash rate. I don't have anything negative to say about it. It seems Karis LeVert is the unliked piece of this. Is there a better version of Karis LeVert, or is Karis LeVert the best option there? It's either going to be Karis LeVert or, I guess it's just going to be Karis LeVert.
Oh, here we go. Naz Reid out. Chat saying confirmed.
Let's go then. Naz Reid out 23 seconds ago. Well, that changes some things.
Yeah, all those guys are going to be like 40, 50% owned, I feel like, because they were pretty close to that with Naz Reid in, and him being out going to affect those rates meaningfully.
By the way, ankle breaker, go ahead and throw that lineup directly in the old trash bin, because it is shit now.
Still positive ROI.
Folks.
It's playable.
Dude, Naz Reid just got ruled out. The whole every bit of this shit is about to change.
Yeah, don't play Naz Reid, guys.
Yeah, no. Naz Reid, the $5,500, 35% owned, 35% optimal, third most owned guy on the slate, is going to make that lineup be not the one you're looking for any longer. That is going to change up the game quite a bit. So let's think about what Minnesota is about to be now without him. So we got that, obviously, 2 days ago. Same sort of setup. Terrence Shannon took on 19 minutes. Obviously, super flat minutes because they won by 8 billion against Utah since Utah blows. Slow-mo 22 minutes. Realistically, it seems like that's where most of this is going to go. Kyle Anderson, 4,500 power forward center. Terrence Shannon, 3,700 shooting guard small forward. Terrence Shannon also terrible, typically permanent guy. Slow-mo, probably not going to get enough minutes to truly matter, but be close.
He's been
I think
pretty
Terrence
bad.
Shannon is just going to get like the large majority of what Naz Reid was just projected for.
I mean, Kyle Anderson, I was going through the rates earlier today, and like he's been really bad as a T-Wolf so far. I don't know that matters because he is such a great, per category contributor normally. And he's on the year been at 0.9 fantasy points a minute, but like he's been averaging, I think, 0.7 since being on the Timberwolves. It's not a full sample size or anything, but at 4,500, I just don't know that Kyle Anderson is going to be a guy I'm going to flock to. Randall, though, is putting up 1.4 fantasy points a minute this year with Reid and with Edwards off the court. Yeah, like you mentioned, he went nuts and mostly limited time last time out. I think Randall, it sounds like it's nothing, it's nothing too sexy here, but like he's got to come up more. Like I kind of was overlooking him on the slate with Naz Reid in. With Naz Reid out, I think he's got to be much more of a priority.
Yeah, I'm taking a peek at some of this data right now. No Reid, no Edwards on. I mean, Randall explodes. Gobert naturally looks better. DiVincenzo better, but nothing too crazy. Probably more of an efficiency thing than anything else. McDaniels obviously using some additional possessions. Yeah, Terrence Shannon, 0.74 fantasy points per minute, 94 minutes with those two guys off. I mean, he's just not going to be in sniffing distance of a real number. I mean, Kyle Anderson just kind of depending on however many minutes we end up giving him, but I just can't imagine it's going to be much more than like 22, and he'll be like fine for the size of this slate. But I think realistically, we're probably just unloading on the Julius Randles, the Dosunmus, the Jaden McDaniels of the world now. Dante DiVincenzo is certainly going to look quite a bit better.
Gobert too. I mean, the matchup is really interesting, I think, with Gobert versus Klingon today, because like this seems like the kind of spot where Klingon could kind of rise to the occasion a little bit more, but if nothing else, they're going to be both kept close to the rim, able to get a shot at doing what they do best. But Gobert, in spots without Naz Reid as well this year, without Naz Reid rather, and Anthony Edwards, he's putting up 1.11 fantasy sports minute, so that it is a little bit of a jump up compared to his usual one flat he's putting up this year. Gains a little bit in usage, rebound rates flat, assist rates flat. I think Gobert to me definitely jumps up in appeal as well. But yeah, the top 6 guys for the T-Wolves with Randall, Gobert, Dosunmu, maybe a little point chasey for the field today. We'll see how that goes. McDaniels, DiVincenzo, Bones Highland. I feel like they're all very live plays. Kyle Anderson and Shannon, I just don't think I'm going to get to.
I didn't realize Portland was such a bad defensive rebounding team. That's surprising to me.
Yeah.
I'm starting to talk myself into a bit of Gobert here.
I like Gobert.
I'm anxious to see what these updates look like. We still have a half hour until we get to lock, folks. We've got plenty of time. These updates will get in for Naz Reid being out. So while you're here, hit the like button. Subscribe. Why would you not want to get instant notifications when we go live to talk about this stuff? That's the most important times. This show is the most important show you're going to watch when it comes to this slate, because we're getting all the information right now. In particular, we should be getting official Detroit information shortly. I'm staring at, we're going to have so much more value here now coming from Minnesota than we had previously. Thank God. We needed it from somewhere. The Nets will start Traore, Powell, Williams, Wolf, Claxton.
18.5 point dogs against the Knicks at home the Knicks are not the Thunder. That's just embarrassing.
It's crazy. By the way, that is the lineup that we already had in here. The highest owned projected net is Josh Minot, who is not one of the 5 names that were just read off, and he is projected for 5% ownership, 5% optimal. That's your own funeral if you're trying to find your favorite net. All right, what are you seeing in the things you've run so far for somebody that we haven't talked about? Because there's a lot of additional spots that are just inundated with 15-ish% owned dudes. Who are your dudes for today?
Here's one that's not going to be a surprise to anybody that's followed the show or my content anywhere over the last year and change. But Ty Jerome, I think, is a compelling question mark on the slate. Playing 25 minutes in most games. Coward being ruled out is a big thing. So this morning ran the sample size for no Jaren Jackson, no John Morant, no Aldama, no Scottie Pippen. That makes Ty Jerome look better. It gets to a pretty small sample size, like about 300 possessions this year. With when you take GG Jackson off as well. But in those amount of court time with basically all your key Grizzlies out, plus Scottie Pippen, plus GG Jackson, Ty Jerome puts up 43% usage, a 50% assist rate, 1.7 fantasy points per minute. Like he's been a monster all year. He's averaging 1.54 in every situation. But it's a tough match against Boston. There's definitely a downside. At 19% ownership, though, assuming that doesn't get much higher, I think he's worth taking the shot on, because even with him getting 23 minutes of the data, I have him about 40 fantasy points, 41 actually, on Ty Jerome today. So I'm team Ty Jerome. Josh, I hate the match with Boston. I know you are, a Boston defender, very intelligently, far ahead of the rest of the markets out there. But I think Ty Jerome can get something going here, because he's just been a demon in every situation besides like one game against the Pistons, who are comparable to Boston defensively.
He just keeps fucking scoring. I don't know what to say. Like he's I assume he has the highest fantasy. Yeah, by a mile, he's the number 1 fantasy point per minute guy. That's crazy. Look at Towns, Duren, Tatum, Jalen Johnson, Porzingis. Like, these guys are monsters. Guards are never on this tier typically. I can't tell you no. I don't trust him in any way, but I can't tell you no.
It just and
I can tell you that we got projections updated.
Oh. Okay, yeah. So put the bow on Ty Jerome. He might be my nuke of the night if we're going to do that bit today. Can he also be my white of the night? Is he white? What is he? I don't know what he is. He's light.
I'm going to let you handle this one.
He could be all the things for me. But I do think again, under 20% ownership, if I get 33, I'm cool with it. If I get 40, I can live with it. Ty Jerome has just been a godsend to me, going back to the Cavs 6 man of the year days last year. So I'm team Ty Jerome again for one more night here, even though Boston, I agree, will be a tough matchup.
What's his first name for real? Ty, allegedly.
Chat's saying he's biracial, which I think that's what I would have guessed.
Well, if that's the case, then not available to you if we happen to run white of the night.
He can't. What biracial counts? That's still 50%.
No, it does not count.
Okay, well, I think now you're the one that's in trouble.
Where are you drawing the line then? Is that where your cutoff is? It's got to be 50% or below. Otherwise, you round up.
Well, like if we had, black pro wrestler of the night, could I pick The Rock?
Now we're getting really technical here.
Just saying.
I mean, yes, for sure, but that's murkier than this one.
Okay. We don't know. We don't know it's Ty Jerome. The chat's saying biracial. I can't confirm it through my one search. I'm not going to search Ty Jerome biracial. Ty Jerome interracial probably also not go well.
This is fascinating that everybody keeps just immediately going with the Tyrone Jerome joke. Just go with Jerome. That's the one that works. Anywho, Bones Highland, 42% owned, 40% optimal. Your number 2 point per dollar play behind Dennis Jenkins at this point. Julius Randle is now your third highest point per dollar option. 47% owned, 48% optimal. We have now changed the slate considerably. While Dennis Jenkins is still the breakaway chalk, Randle on his corner, Bones Highland on his corner, even Denny to a degree climbing a bit. I'll say this much. I like Julius Randle and Bones Highland more than I like Dennis Jenkins, but since he sucked yesterday, I bet now that I say that, Dennis Jenkins is going to have 1 million fantasy points.
I think it made it easier for the field to not play him today if they do feel jilted by him yesterday. And I think that is always kind of an interesting thing to consider playing him more, because I really wasn't buying that he was necessarily going to get to 55% today. And now that you have ways to pivot around that, I think Dennis might come in lower than whatever estimates we're going to have here. I'm re-uploading everything to get my read on it, but I don't know.
Okay. Honestly, if I'm playing the slate, I hope that he comes in aggressively owned. I would want that because I don't think that he should be. I would not be surprised if it was a little bit lower than that for sure. But the Minnesota stuff now, I should probably pull them up individually. 47% ownership for Randall, 42 for Bones Highland, 30 for Rudy Gobert, 25 apiece for Jaden McDaniels and Io, 15 for DiVincenzo. We got to 8 on Kyle Anderson. Terrence Shannon soaked up 15 and a half minutes of absolutely useless, by the way.
He's going to break the slate tonight now that you've said that out loud.
Let's break this down then. What don't you like about Minnesota, if anything? Because I'm not confident there's a single piece of the real pieces of Minnesota that I don't like a lot.
Yeah, I'm just okay. My sim just finished coming through here. Nothing I don't like. I am coming in lower on Julius Randle. I'm getting 36% of him, at least optimally compared to the field's 47. Gobert, I'm dead even with on 30% and change. Desudma's the one I'm getting the most above now, getting him in half my lineups. Ownership's only at 24. I do feel like the field's going to be happy to point chase him as well, with the fact that he just did put up 50 in a similar situation a couple days ago. But I think he's still underpriced, 6,200 shooting guard, small forward as well. Like we talked about, one of the reasons for Jaylen Brown is that positionality. Getting it on Desudma, I think, looks pretty good. But I'm up on Desudma, up on McDaniels, lower on DiVincenzo, getting only 11% there. Fields at 15. Lower on Bones Highland, getting 30. The Fields at 53. But they're all like core plays. I don't see how they're not making almost across the board 25 to 50% for all of them.
Yeah, they look fantastic. Minnesota just never, in a competitive game, Minnesota's going to run Randall, Gobert, McDaniels, Desudma, DiVincenzo into the ground. Bones could certainly come along for the ride. Realistically, Kyle Anderson can play a little bit more than this if it's really cooking for him, but I don't necessarily expect that. But I feel really comfortable with the 5 starters and Bones. Like this, they're going to play a shit ton of minutes unless this game gets squirrely either direction. Gobert looks great. I love the Dosunmu positionality. Like, that's incredibly flexible. Obviously, McDaniels at small forward makes that position look a little bit better. Minnesota looks fantastic now. We didn't really have that good of stuff.
Chat saying that Jalen Duren looking like he's playing. They've been saying it for a while that he was in warm-ups, working through shoot-around stuff. And apparently Sleep Storm Audio, I should get his full name right, ended his warm-up with a 360 dunk. So he's if he doesn't play and he ended his warm-up with a 360, I'd be mad at Jalen Duren now.
Couldn't do a 540 apparently. Warriors will start Pajemski, Melton, Santos, Green, Porzingis. And if we just want to keep that going, Jalen Duren in.
There we go.
Fresh off a 360 dunk.
That was actually that's the way you announced it. It's
I'm
like
in.
One of those things. You shoot a starter flare into the air. That's how the race is starting. Is if a player's going to be active, he has to end his practice with a 360 dunk, and then it's good to go.
Well, that makes the Pistons side a little bit easier to talk about at this point. Or actually, it's probably a little bit harder to talk about because Paul Reed would have been even easier to click on than Jalen Duren. So Dennis Jenkins, 50% owned. Jalen Duren, 20% owned. No one else from the Pistons really getting any other love. So how do you feel about Duren now that you know that he's in?
Let's see. So in my rerun data here was getting Duren at about 33% optimal rate. In terms of my exposures, yeah, getting the same amount, so nothing too crazy there. I like Duren. I like the upside he has here. I mean, earlier today, he would have been my top projected guy or just about on the slate. Now I'd have Jalen Johnson safely ahead. But I think Duren, the fact there was no Isaiah Stewart out there, his rates take a massive jump up with no Stewart, no Jaden Ivey, no Cade Cunningham this year. He plays at about a 1.5 fantasy point per minute pace. Going against the Warriors, you're not talking about real legit interior that you're worried about. And even stylistically, like one of the games I was most worried about Duren a couple of weeks ago was against the Spurs, and he lit up Wemby in that game. Like, got a really good spot. Porzingis, Wemby, not 1-to-1 or anything, but I think there's some similarities there that make me think Duren might have a shot at being useful again here. But yeah, really for Duren, the projections there, the lack of Cade, all looks good. And for Jenkins, I'm a little bit low on him too, but he still looks like about a 33% play, maybe 40% in my final lineups here. Neither, I would say slate defining in the way they could be if things broke a little bit differently. But I think they both look really good and worth being in, maybe a third, 50% of your lineups.
Bunch of news just came in here. Pistons starting lineup: Jenkins, Robinson, Thompson, Harris, Duren. Reed Shepherd starting for Houston. I'm going to assume that is in place of Tari Eason. Shepherd's already 6,400. We already got him at 29 minutes. I can't imagine that's going to make him look that interesting, because right now he's 2% owned. Kevin Huerter is out for Detroit, so we were still waiting on that piece of information. We had Kevin Huerter in for 17 and a half minutes. Realistically, that'll probably make Karis LeVert, Ron Holland both look incrementally better. Javonte Green will probably get an extra minute or two if it matters. And then finally, Knicks are starting Brunson, Shamet, Bridges, Anunoby, and Towns. That's what we had in already.
Yeah,
you Shamet guy, because he stinks. That's not something that I like, but
he's playing. I mean, he's playing like high 20s minutes in most spots lately since Hart's been out. I mean, he can always get hot. I don't think fading him fully would ever be a thing I would do intentionally. He's cheap. He does allow some lineups to work. I think he's only shooting guard eligible. So that does make him a little bit less of a compelling play as opposed to shooting guard, small forward, or something like that, which I think you can make the case he should be. But in the most recent run I had, obviously things can move around a little bit with the lineup changing here. But I think Shamet, to me, a 38% play, Fields at 20. So I'm not stoked about it, but he's been a 0.7 fantasy point per minute guy. He's a good shooter. He just doesn't shoot enough.
Rockets will start Shepherd, Thompson, Durant, Smith, and Şengün. How's that lineup been? I have not looked at that lineup data in a minute, but I kind of want to know how they've been with those five. Durant, Şengün, Thompson, Jabari, Reed. 130 minutes. Let's make sure there's no weird shooting bullshit. 130 minutes, 120 offensive rating, 122 defensive rating, negative 1.7. Yikes, folks. Yikes.
Oh, poor Reid.
Shame. All right. Ryan said, can you run another DK optimal with Reid out? Yes. Could pretty much run that right now too, and it won't matter. Right? We didn't get any other it's all
Herder
gonna
being out.
Moves on the margins. Jenkins, Bones, Jaden McDaniels, Avdia, Gobert, Shamit, Randall, Porzingis. Yeah, I'm not surprised to see that. No Mitchell Robinson though.
Huh. Also, Taj Gibson's out today.
Oh shit.
Rebuild. Start the night over, guys.
I'm surprised he can even play this late. This is like oatmeal and go to bed time. News God. 60-month member message. I don't know if you just like forged that or not. Spags, just big old exclamation points. Also, good luck tonight, y'all. Shout out El Negro Loco. I should say that translated every time.
You should do that for the people every time. That could be the new segment. You know, we got no Eric here, so you go the other way.
Yeah. Shout out the Crazy Black. Must plays on FanDuel. Let's take a peek here. Pull up the data hub. We'll take a look through the top of this. We'll walk it through each position. I'll get it out of the way now, just in case somebody's going to ask for it. Point guard. Bones Highland is 50% owned, 50% optimal, and only point guard eligible. So Bones Highland is going to be a primary point guard option. Every other guy listed after him is also available to be rostered at shooting guard. Io DeSunmu, Dante DiVincenzo, Amen Thompson. They are all breaking free. I know you've heard us talk about Dennis Jenkins a lot. Not nearly as good of a play on FanDuel. He's in the mix, undoubtedly, but not a priority in the same way. At the shooting guard spot, it's everybody that I just listed. DeSunmu, DiVincenzo, Amen Thompson. We could add Asar Thompson to that list as well. He also has some small forward eligibility. Did I miss a guard that you want to mention today on FanDuel?
No, I mean, DeSunmu definitely one. It's funny, I'm looking through the FanDuel data hub on Stochastic. Some of them are point guard, shooting guard, and some of them are shooting guard, point guard, which I don't know if that's like a FanDuel thing or if that's a data hub parsing thing, but
just, oh no, that's a FanDuel thing. It drives me absolutely insane.
It's so dumb.
I don't know why they do it. It's crazy to me that they wouldn't just make that normal, but they do not make that normal.
Funny bit by that. Yeah. You know, I think you covered the guards well enough, but that is amusing on their end.
Oh, 7:14 right now. I am not confident that I knew that Live After Lock was coming up in 15 minutes. Greg Ehrenberg is going to take you guys after lock, probably some college basketball going on. He's going to have plenty of things to break down via the prop tool or via Odd Shopper. So get excited. He's already here, getting himself ready, prepped, and ready to go for y'all. Be happy for him. Hit the like button for it. Small forward at FanDuel. Jaden McDaniels is the number one guy. Not really all that close now. 45% owned, 45% optimal. Then we've got a pretty similar pack of three guys. Jason Tatum and Kevin Durant. And then, one of those things is not like the other. Kyle Anderson rounds out that group of 33% owned guys. We move that to then power forward. This brings Julius Randle into the mix. He is power forward only. It's the same mix of McDaniels, Anderson, Tatum, Durant. Did I miss any forwards on the FanDuel side?
No, I think you got both. I mean, Tobias, I don't mind going down a little bit lower, but I think for the most part, everybody else definitely more in the owned range, and certainly the Minnesota Timberwolves guys with Randall and McDaniels, they're going to be chalky for the field and chalky for the optimal rate.
And then finally at center, there is only one answer for who the best center is, and that is absolutely positively Rudy Gobert, 6,600, 45% owned. Negative leverage, but 48% boom. He has broken free. I will mention 13K Nikola Jokic is on this slate, and I would never tell a soul not to play him.
Yep. Could break the slate on FanDuel easily.
Yes, he could. He is live for 100 every single time he steps onto the floor. Confirmed good. GG Jackson and Taj Gibson both ruled out 4 minutes ago. Just wanted to make sure we confirmed that information. When Josh hypes up guys he doesn't believe in, his nose grows in real time. It happened when he said Rudy Gobert. I mean, we talked about it earlier, and I think I can justify why I like it, but could you imagine if my nose got bigger on screen? It's huge already. No, it would be the whole screen. I would need that like 0.5 zoom iPhone camera shit as it started to get closer to back me back out.
That's right, Josh. You take the power away from them by making the jokes yourself.
Per Rich, Ryan Rupert not in today. He joins Taj Gibson and GG Jackson on the sidelines. So, is there a Minnesota guy you're not getting?
DiVincenzo is the one. I'm rerunning stuff one more time because we just get a projection update here. I'll shout Rich in the chat for that. For you guys out there, go grab him right now. But yeah, I think DiVincenzo's the one that's not coming up. Obviously, similar opportunity for him in terms of being out on the court, and theoretically that would make him pull away from all the other guys. But I tend to just play the data straight away. So for me, if he's not coming up, I'm not gonna really goose him too much. But yeah, he's the only one. I think the Terrence Shannon tier, the Kyle Anderson tier, not really there for me today. But I'm not surprised by that.
Supreme Juice. He just 8-miled him, Papa Doc. Yeah, man. He went to Cranbrook. That's a private school. I like DiVincenzo, but I get it. He's probably the lowest man on the totem pole in that entire list. Salary, position, all that shit. Does this make Jalen Johnson easier for you? Does this make it certainly Jaylen Brown is now 13% owned. He's less owned now. I like Jaylen Brown even more than I did before. Where do you land on Jalen Johnson? Because he is now less owned.
Yeah, I'm getting a lot right now. I'm going to kind of hem it down over the last 12 minutes, but Tatum, I got in 50% of my lineups here in this first run. Think I would like that to come down. Got Jaylen Brown at 30. Jalen Johnson, I'm just not getting really at all. I'm all the way down to about 10% on him. I would like to flatten out my Tatum and Jaylen Brown a little bit, I think, because I view them as very similar plays. I think they have similar ranges of outcomes. I might boost Jalen Johnson a little bit just for that big ceiling. I mean, I still think even though he is a player that is definitely a little bit expensive on the slate, he does still make a winning lineup, at least 15% of the time. So I don't want to be too low, but yeah, it's hard for me to get there naturally on, more than the field 6%. I'm getting 9, 10. Like that's about as high as it's going to get naturally without me boosting ROIs.
Okay. Yeah, we're starting to get down to the home stretch. 10 minutes to go. Hit that like button. I'm surveying the data now after like the Minnesota nonsense drops. I love Jaylen Brown today. I've loved him all day, and I think it's even more interesting to me now that all of this news is broke. I mean,
Tatum
came up name we haven't said today at all? Do you have any interest in Alperen Şengün?
Not, I do think he's a decent play just in terms of, but I thought it was a decent play earlier in terms of the ownership. Now he's up to 20%. I'm not there. I'm only getting 4%. I am low relative to my own, sim rates for him. I think that you can make the case that he should be about a 20% play, 25% play. And I actually think he 5X is a decent amount of the time, but relative to the slate, I think just paying up for a center, not something that's happening too much in my data, unless it's Jalen Duren. But maybe that's a blind spot because I'm getting a lot of Duren, getting almost 40% of him and getting very little Şengün.
Separated by $100 in our projection, separated by 1 fantasy point. I mean, realistically, those guys are coin flippy.
Yeah. No Cade,
I don't really have much of a preference.
You don't have a preference between Duren and Şengün? No lean at all, towards Duren?
Not really. I don't think so. I kind of I prefer the Reed Shepherd starting lineup for Şengün offensively. You've got real shooter Durant, real shooter Reid, real enough shooter Jabari Smith. I think that's the best you can do. I mean, Reid is definitely going to be a more looked at shooter than Tari Eason is. I think that's slightly better for Şengün, just incrementally. I like him a little bit more now than I did 10 minutes ago.
Huh. Okay. Yeah, I don't know. I'm a little, you know what's one guy I'm surprised I'm getting now? Jerome. It's coming up a lot for me.
Let's talk about it. Jerome, French artist or $4,200 point guard for the Memphis Grizzlies. Could be either one of those two things. At the moment, he has a sizable positive leverage score in our tools. So sizable, in fact, that it is the highest number of anybody here. 27.5 minutes, 0.9 fantasy points per minute. Only 16% owned in the ownership. Is it a Jerome day for us today, now that we've gotten all of that Memphis news? Because it appears that the answer is yes.
Yeah, I'm getting him at about 33%. I mean, he has shown some rebounding upside. I also have to pull in all the slates here on at the same time. Yeah, for me, I think Jerome as a value play coming up more, just losing some of the inactives guys. No Rupert, no GG Jackson, no Taj Gibson. It does help out a little bit. So at this point, for me, with how it looks for Jerome, I do think he's going to make some of my lineups, but I'm not excited about it. But I think he might be one of those necessary evils on the slate. So yeah, he's coming up for me. Shit.
I'd be very nervous about the relationship between him and Walter Clayton right now. And I guess to a lesser degree, Javon Small, but Clayton's slightly more expensive. You basically buy the MPE. They have more or less the same projection. They're projected within 0.15 minutes of each other, but dramatic swings in the data. I would want to flatten that out for myself. Because optically, those two dudes are the same dude in this situation. Look at the minutes.
Yeah. I mean, I'm certainly not stoked about Jerome. I don't think there's anything underlying for him that makes me feel particularly excited. But sometimes you just got to take these guys as they come. So I think I'll be doing that here as I scramble to get all my shit in.
Yeah, keep your eye on Walter Clayton ownership. Don't let yourself get disproportionate between those two. Jesus, they just do not have dudes. Yeah, like Walter Clayton. I mean, he got 26 minutes two games ago. Jerome is on 24, 22, and then 10. Clayton got 29 on the 9th. I feel like Walter Clayton gets more minutes than Jerome today if I had to pick between the two. I would want it to all be similar. Our minutes are all basically just these dudes are going to play 26 minutes apiece because there's 9 of them and Memphis doesn't give a shit. But if anybody's going to play more, I think Clayton plays more than him. I don't like that natural separation there. I'm interested in Walter Clayton if people are going to get disproportionately to Jerome.
Yeah,
I do not think I'd say this much about his name today.
You're a big Walter Clayton guy. You've been saying that for years. Yeah, for me, I still would be a little more on the Jerome side, but I'm putting my final stuff in. So maybe I'll boost Walter Clayton just for you, Josh, and then he'll be the thing that cost me all the money tonight.
So we did refresh his optimal is now manageable. Jerome is 18% owned. Clayton is 17. Jerome is 23% optimal. Clayton is 14. So slight positive leverage for him now. Actually, the most positive leverage of a Grizzly is your boy, Ty Jerome. Race undetermined.
I mean, it depends how he plays tonight, right? If he plays well against Boston, I guess no, doesn't really answer anything then.
Yeah, it becomes a tricky situation. Race TBD on Ty Jerome. We'll find out eventually. Somebody pull the audience, cut his leg open like a tree and count the rings. I don't know how it works.
Jesus.
All right, who's your biggest fade? We've got this massive Dennis Jenkins ownership. We've got really big Julius Randle ownership. Benny, Bones. Where do you first start deviating from the field?
Porzingis, I got no Porzingis right now. I still think he's like, to me, should be a 16% play. But I'm just naturally not getting there because of getting more Gobert. Really just more of everybody else. I got, some Şengün, a lot of Jalen Duren. He's in about half my lineups, a little bit less than that. So yeah, he's been, I would say, a victim of the slate for me. But I'm okay with that because I just don't think he plays more than 25 minutes. If he nukes, sucks. But minutes wise, I just don't feel that bad about it.
I don't think you're crazy for that. I'm just very nervous about Kristaps Porzingis because when he plays, I think he's still just really awesome at basketball. And my mind is just so soured on him because he just simply doesn't show up on the floor. But I think when he's here, he's a problem. And it just makes me a little nervous. Like, is their goal to continue to stretch him out more? Maybe. I don't know. I don't think it's crazy to be light because I think there's a lot of downside there. And as I look at the names at the top, I don't know. I don't see one before. Like Danish Jenkins to me is the one that scares me the most, more than Porzingis. But Porzingis is the first one that I get to after that.
Yeah, I mean, I get it. The field's doing it. You got to make your stand somewhere. And I think center's a good enough spot, even if it's just going down. Like, what if Mitchell Robinson puts up 28 and Porzingis puts up 30? Like, it's not an awful Porzingis day relative to a guy playing 25 minutes. He's been playing better than that lately for the Warriors. So yeah, maybe a little bit low in terms of what the actual outcome is. But even if Mitchell Robinson puts up 25, 28 and Porzingis gets to 35, like, did I lose on that? I don't know that I did.
No, I don't think so. Mitchell Robinson now down to 10% owned, 12% optimal. Like, he was like a value play du jour out of the gate, and he just kind of like slipped into the ether a little bit after that. He's still kind of sneaky.
He's hanging on for me because he hits 6x based on my data a pretty good amount of the time at that price tag, and even with the value opening up a little bit more around him, still not a lot of guys that do that. You just have cheaper, kind of pay up options, mid tier guys, all that.
Ty Jerome 6,900, 8.7% positive leverage, our highest positive leverage play of the day. I'm going to assume you've got a pretty sizable chunk of him then.
There's
no chance Ty Jerome's projection is lower in our projections than it is in yours.
No, I would have Ty Jerome today at 42.3 on DK. So he's making a little bit less than half of my lineups tonight. So, which I'm cool with. If Ty Jerome sucks today, and it's possible, again, he put up I think 28 fantasy points against the Pistons. Like, a good defense with a lot of good wing defense can make it hard on him. It's on this slate. I need fun. I think Ty Jerome is one of those things that is fun.
I'm surprised you don't have more than 100% based on what I just heard. Somehow rostering him in two positions at once, if possible, would be more in the cards. Gary Payton, by the way, your second highest positive leverage play, just in case we didn't say his name at all. 13% owned, 19% optimal. Your biggest negative leverage play, Rudy Gobert.
Oh, I love that.
No, neither do I. Yeah, Rudy Gobert, highest negative leverage play right now.
Oh, I'm team Dennis Jenkins today too. My final lineups.
Let's see. Dennis Jenkins, Julius Randle, Denny Avdia, Bones, Highland, the only guys projected for north of 30% ownership. Chris, who is the worst of them tonight?
I'm hoping it's Bones Highland. I think he's the one I'm not really getting a big uptick on. Just the minutes not secure for him the same way as they are for the starters. But I don't think any of them are really bad plays functionally.
I agree. My guess in this one, Dennis Jenkins, back-to-back suck burgers.
Oh. If he gets 16 shots again, I won't be mad. Like, if he sucks again, gets 16 shots, at least, whatever. The opportunity was there yesterday. It's fine.
If he sucks again, you're going to want to do 16 shots after back-to-back performances. But that is the end of Live Before Lock, because it is 7:30 and some extra seconds, which means it is now time for Live After Lock. Welcome to the program, Greg Ehrenberg. What's good, brother?
Your guys' Ty Jerome conversation remind me of, do you guys know about Kevin Huerter's nickname?
No, I call him the
I don't
Hurt
know.
Locker in my brain, but I don't think that's his nickname.
When Kevin Herter's having a really good game back when he was with Atlanta, his teammates used to call him Kevon Herter, which is one of the better nicknames. I think it's even on if you go to Basketball Reference. I'm pretty sure they list it there as one of his nicknames. Let me see if they still have it there. But it made me think of that, and then I was thinking, like, what is if Ty Jerome plays well?
They do.
Is he Tyrone Jerome? And then what's his name if he plays poorly?
He's Tyler Jerome. Yeah.
We went down this before. The Jerome part carries the weight. That's all there is to it here.
Well, you know, one of the whitest people in existence is named Jerome Seinfeld.
Who?
Jerry Seinfeld. His name's Jerome.
Jerry start for Jerome?
Yeah.
I didn't know.
Well,
that.
yeah. Well, that's why he goes by Jerry, because he didn't want them to think something else.
By the way, if you go to
he's
go
the
to
least
Reference,
Jerome ever.
go to Basketball Reference and search Kevin Herter. First nickname they have listed for him, it's K''VON.
That'd be a great running back. Kevon Herter with the apostrophe. I'd roster that guy. High ADP.
And Kevin
Kevon Herter,
Peyton Hillis type. He could be both.
Does Marc Gasol still have Big Burrito? That's all that matters.
Let's see.
Sure does. Big Burrito. Greatest name on there. Never been called that once.
Just an appropriate too.
I don't think anybody's stopping Kevon Herter.
No, and also, again, Marc Gasol is Spanish. The large tapas plate would be more accurate. It's bothered me for years since we talked about a Big Burrito nickname on stream. So I think, it's unfair to Marc Gasol and really the people of Spain writ large.
On that note, folks, enjoy your weekend. Greg, have fun.
All right, Spags,
Hi,
Josh, you guys have a good weekend. So we got the post-lock show here. I have got pulled up here on the screen some of the live bets from Portfolio EV. But then also in the interim, we could be waiting for some of the potential news that could come out here. So I know that we don't have key players who are questionable in the injury report. But with that said, we don't have the Memphis Grizzlies starting lineup. I think I know what the Grizzlies starting lineup is going to be. I think it is going to be Ty Jerome, Walter Clayton, Jalen Wells, Olivier Spags, Prosper, and Taylor Hendricks. But there's a lot of weird things that the Grizzlies can end up doing with their starting lineup. So it is definitely something that we are going to want to keep an eye on here. So that's the biggest piece of news that I'm going to be looking out for. But also want to remind you guys that today is the final day, the absolute final chance to take advantage of our Odd Shopper promo. If you guys sign up with the promo code LBL50, you get 50% off an Odd Shopper package. And also, if you're new to Odd Shopper, your first week totally free. So if you just want to try it out, go sign up. And if you don't like it before the end of a week, you could just cancel the sub and you'll be charged $0. But if you do like it and you sign up with the promo code LBL50, then your first payment is going to be 50% off, whether you do sign up for a weekly package or a monthly package. And one thing that has been really fun to play around with over the course of the NCAA tournament, which has been, 1.5 days so far, it's been the live betting tool here, which is why I have it pulled up on screen just to see what it is that we have for potential bets here. We are pretty close to the which game is it? Iowa and Clemson being at halftime. There's 45 seconds left. It's usually a little bit easier to get some of these bets in when the games actually go to halftime. So I'll be keeping a closer eye on this in the next couple of minutes when the game actually goes to halftime, because then I could go over here. I could turn on the filter to only have the games at break included, and that'll just be easier to find some static lines as opposed to the lines that are always moving around a decent amount. So I'm going to go back to that in a second. Looks like I accidentally closed out of the other window here. So going to pull back up the Odd Shopper projections so that we are going to be able to see what ends up happening when the Memphis Grizzlies starting lineup comes out here, because that also probably should be in a few minutes because that game locks in 25 minutes. But also we could build out a same game parlay in the props tool while we're waiting for that starting lineup to come out here for the Grizzlies. See if there's any questions you guys have in the interim here. Let's see. Super chats. Nothing recent here, so I think we're all good there. Let's see what we've got for any potential questions in Discord. And we've got nothing at the moment. If you guys have any questions for me, tag me in the chat, throw it into the NBA DFS channel, and I'll be on the lookout for that. Let's see what's going on in the YouTube chat as well as we start getting ready for the show here. We've got Tear Ducks University. Is that the, did it just come out? Let's see. It did. Here we go. Starting lineup, which of course is not as was anticipated because it's the Memphis Grizzlies. We have as a starting lineup, Jerome, Small, Wells, Hendricks, and Prosper. And did we have Small? Yeah, which I didn't think. We had Small projected to come off the bench, not to start. So a little bit of irony here. This does mean that we're seeing a smaller starting lineup for the Grizzlies. No pun intended, because they started Javon Small. But I think that does lend itself well to the playing time of some of the smaller guys here. What did we have as the starting lineup before? Probably the same maybe, but with Walter Clayton starting. Let's see. We had, yes. So we had a projected starting lineup of, just a 1v1 swap. We had Javon Small and Walter Clayton Jr. swapped. So I think we're going to see not too much change in the projected minutes for Walter Clayton and for Small. What do we have Small projected for as far as minutes? Yeah, we had Small for right around 28 minutes. We had Walter Clayton also for around 28 minutes. I don't really think that's going to change all that much. We've got a very thin rotation here for the Memphis Grizzlies. We had prior to this, every single player other than Ty Jerome. Ty Jerome we had projected for just under 25 minutes. Every other rotation player was projected for right around 26 to 29 minutes. That's probably still going to be the same case here. Maybe we give Small an extra half minute and Doc a half minute from Walter Clayton. But this should be a pretty small lineup that ends up lending itself to just more guard play and two guards being on the court. Two small guards, I should say, being on the court at all points in times for the Grizzlies. Tizzle Main, Kata, 20 rebounds. Certainly possible. I mean, like, who is he competing with for boards here? And, I mean, this has been the kind of situation with the Grizzlies for a while now. Like, look at the size they have here. They've got Olivier Maxence Prosper, Taylor Hendricks, who's really more of a wing. Tyler Burton plays some minutes, but it's a very, very small team. It's certainly possible that Kata just pulls down every single available rebound there. Let's see what else we've got for questions here. Nothing else in the chat. See if there's anything in Discord. We got one from Boom Shack. Wants to know, how do I like Klingon? Rate from 7 to 10. I can't rate him 7 to 10. Can the scale be from like 6 to 9? I can't go any lower than 7. That's just a 7 to 10 rating. Just kind of like a 1 to 4 rating. Let's see, what did I have for exposure to Klingon? So I do have one decent concern with Klingon here. I'm going to pull up his projection. So Donovan Klingon, I understand he went just absolutely berserk the other game, but he's not playing that much. So we've got Klingon projected for 27 minutes, and he's currently $7,700. You have to have an outlandishly good points per dollar game in 27 minutes to end up being a GPP winning player at $7,700. If Klingon scores 2 fantasy points per minute, which is well above Jokic even, like we have what do we have Jokic in our projections at? Like 1.6 fantasy points per minute, something like that. Klingon has to be better as a fantasy producer than what Jokic is in order for him to be a good option at this kind of salary. Because look at what Klingon's done recently, as far as minutes anyway. And like anything could happen where random things happen in, some smaller sample size of games. But here's the recent minutes for Klingon. 25, 24.5, 27.5. Even then in 2 fantasy points per minute, if you're getting like 50 fantasy points at 7,700, you'd be happy with that. But I also don't think it's like breaking a slate. To me, Boom Shack, you asked, how do I like Klingon from a scale of 7 to 10? It's going to be a 7 because you're not letting me go lower. But if it was a scale of 1 to 10, it would be fair. I have him in 0% of lineups for today. Kyle in chat said Klingon is getting the same run as Porzingis and Jerome, but $1,500 pricier. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. And also, if you look at somebody like Ty Jerome, we have Ty Jerome as a 1.5 fantasy point per minute guy. Klingon 1.25. And Ty Jerome is cheaper. Porzingis, same sort of deal. Cheaper and 1.35 fantasy points per minute, as opposed to Klingon being a 1.25 fantasy point per minute guy. And then Boom Shack just followed up and said, thank you for explaining that. Yeah, just not enough playing time for him. They're trying to get him and Time Lord both minutes. Looks like we just got a projections update, so let's look at that. See what we got for the Memphis guys. All right. So the Grizzlies now, in light of the new projections update, what do we do with these guys? So we've got, let me refresh. We'll go to FanDuel and then back to DraftKings. They should refresh the projections here. Yeah. All right. So we upped Javon Small's minutes to 28. That puts him at 27.5 fantasy points. Certainly puts him in play at $5,200. Ty Jerome, unchanged. Taylor Hendricks, Olivia Maxence Prosper, they're both pretty unchanged. We've got Dejan Jarreau in for 25.5 minutes. That puts him at 22.95 fantasy points at $4,200. Certainly in play. Walter Clayton looks quite a bit worse now. We've got Walter Clayton in for, so it looks like we shaved about 1.5 minutes off of Walter Clayton, and that puts him at about 23 fantasy points at $4,600. So, yeah, I think Walter Clayton is going to be somebody who falls out of lineups for me now. I had Walter Clayton previously in 21% of lineups. That'll probably go down to like 10% or something like that. And then I'll probably get to a little bit of Javon Small. Javon Small I only had in 3% of lineups before. I'd say I probably end up with like 20% or so of Javon Small. But we'll see. As soon as ownership updates here, which it just did, let's see what the ownership is on these guys now as well. I'm going to run everything through the late swap tool and I'll let you guys know what my actual ownership ends up being on these guys. All right, so here's our projected ownership for Memphis. We've got Ty Jerome for 20%. I think Javon Small looks solid. 13% ownership, 21% chance of being optimal. Same for Dejan Jarreau, 12% ownership, 21% chance to be optimal. I think both of them are pretty good contrarian GPP plays. Let's do some swaps. Bronx Boy Rob says, I know mini guys are looking good, but still 1v1 Randall versus Tatum. Let's see. Both of them are good options to me, but I prefer Randall to Tatum. If it's just a 1v1. Randall over Tatum for me. And all right, we're all caught up on questions. Let's do some swaps. While I'm doing some swaps here, I'll also put on the in-game live betting tool here so we could see what some of the in-game bets are. And yeah, not too much. We got a hockey bet here. We've got one long odds bet on Iowa and Clemson to go to overtime. It's funny. Some of these have just like massively long odds, and you think like, that's never going to happen. But there's already been a couple of overtime games. I think if you were just blindly betting all of these games that have projected as plus EV to go to overtime, you would be coming out ahead. Super chat here from Mastermind Magruder. Best $4,800 or less guard or forward on DraftKings. Sure. $4,800. All right, let's see. Guard or okay, so anything but center for $4,800 or less. Who's projecting best there? We've got Bones Highland. He's fairly popular, so there's a pretty good chance you already have Bones in your lineup because he's projected for 25% ownership. If you already have Bones, then I'd say Scoot Henderson here at $4,800. So there's a couple of options for you in case you do not have, you already have, I should say, Bones Highland in your lineup. Bones pretty clearly the right answer, though. He's the best guy. He's like a real guy on the slate. Scoot Henderson just kind of like filler last man in. He's okay in that role, but he's not somebody who I think is really worth prioritizing or anything. Bando, who would get more run for the Celtics in a blowout? Out of who? Who would? So nobody who's worth playing. I'll answer it that way. Mayor, what do I think about Burton? I think he has 0.66 fantasy points. Is that too low? Also favored Houston, Atlanta that I like. I have Burton in no lineups as of now. I had a couple lineups with Burton. He's not a priority, though. Another guy, if you just need the salary at like $3,600, he's okay. But I only had a couple lineups with him. And then favorite Houston and Atlanta player. Houston, Atlanta, CJ McCollum. CJ McCollum at $6,200. Not somebody also who I think is like a great option or anything like that, but he's a contrarian play with some upside. So if you're looking for somebody who's off the board from that game, CJ McCollum. And yeah, so apologies, Mayor, putting in chat that I missed his question. Sometimes Discord notifications are a little weird and it just didn't show your message in the notifications. But then it showed your second message in the notifications. It said that I missed your first question. But we got to it. I mean, also, obviously, if you have the ability to spend up to Jalen Johnson, he has probably the highest ceiling of any player on the slate. He's just a little bit hard to get to because of how expensive he is. Mamson, Sanson, Calzone, Ty Jerome, Dejan Giro, or Small. I could only pick two. Jerome and Small. Pretty easy. Pretty easy for me. Almost made favorite plays for the late FanDuel Showdown. Let me run everything through late swap for the slate that locks, or I should say for the next part of games locking 12 minutes, and then I'll look at the Showdown slate. Not something that I've looked at as of now, but I could certainly look at it after I update some lineups for everything right now. And I'm curious to see what ends up changing here for me. I did have a decent amount of Jerome exposure, which I assume a lot of you guys did as well. If you were using our tools and running stuff through the stochastic sims, Jerome showed up in a good amount of lineups. So will that stay the same? Will it change? We're about to find out. I'm kicking off the late swap right now. And yeah, no problem. No problem. Also, we've only got, 5-game slate with all of the games locking here in 11 minutes. So no problem to take a quick look at Showdown after we get through this. Chris Murray or Burton? I'll say Burton over Chris Murray just because of how thin we have the Grizzlies today. They've got so few active bodies, and it's not to say that Burton's a great option or anything like that, but I do think Chris Murray is a pretty poor option. I had Murray in 0 lineups and I at least had a couple of lineups with Burton. I don't view Murray as being playable today. What's our projection on him? Yeah, we have Chris Murray projected for 9 fantasy points. There's pretty much no... The only time I'm playing somebody who's projected for 9 fantasy points, a call back to the Showdown question, would be a Showdown slate with no value and he's 1K. That's pretty much the only scenario I'm playing somebody in NBA DFS who's projected for 9 fantasy points. We've got Boom Shack wants to know any Reed Shepherd love. Not really. You look at Reed Shepherd, he is expected to start today. But one thing to think about, when he is starting, that is less usage for Reed Shepherd. He's playing with much higher usage guys in the starting lineup than when he comes off the bench. He usually doesn't start when they're this healthy. So we have him for 31 fantasy points at $6,400. There's better guys to roster on the slate than Reed Shepherd. I'd say look elsewhere. Bando, last man in utility for $4,700 or under. That is Bones Highland. He fits in that price range, right? We're looking at that before. Yeah, 4,700, Bones Highland. And, you know, it's funny. We got that question before. I could give the exact same answer. Bones Highland, if you already have Bones Highland in your lineup, then go to Scoot Henderson. But Bones, if you could play him. Or I should say, Bones, because you could play him, more to mean that if you don't already have him. What are the Knicks doing in this game? Are they not like immediately destroying the Nets today? I think the spread closed at 19.5 for that game. Already answered that one. All right, just finished my late swap run. Here's what I ended up getting to as far as changes go. So I ended up getting to, I'm going to run this again. Not as much Javon Small as I would have wanted. I have Javon Small in 8% of lineups. I thought he would have come in a little bit more. Walter Clayton did dip in my exposures. I had Walter Clayton in over 20% of lineups. He ended up being 14%. See, I'm going to run one more swap here, and I think that'll still make some changes to the lineups. But there was no like massive alterations. It was a little bit less of Walter Clayton, a little bit more of Javon Small. Some other guys got moved around a little bit, but there was no insane drastic changes that happened from that late swap run. Maybe one more run, though, will get me to potentially a little bit less Clayton and a little bit more Small. Okay, well, I run this sim here. Let's see if anything else popped up in the in-game betting tool. We've still got the plus EV bet on Iowa and Clemson to go to overtime. A little bit of value, too. You know, it's funny. The other day when I was doing this show, I don't know if you guys remembered, but it's almost identical. Because what was on screen when I pulled up the in-game betting tool, it was one of the I'm pretty sure it was one of the NCAA play-in games to go to overtime was a plus EV bet. And then there was also a Devils bet for that game as well. But that game, it was for the Devils to have over 1.5 goals. The bet that's currently on the board here is for the third period to have under 1.5 total goals scored. So that's what this market is, in case you're curious looking for a bet. All right, favorite of my lineups, what should be my last run here. And yeah, kind of what I thought, a little bit less of Walter Clayton again. So I'm down to 11% of Walter Clayton. Cool. I'll upload this. Nothing really too crazy, but I'm happy to have a little bit less of Clayton. I've got to what I started with when I did my first swap. I was initially at just over 20% of Clayton. Now I'm at 11%. I'm good with that haircut. Let's see if there's anything else of note from these lineups. Bones Highland, actually, it's funny. Bones Highland ended up showing up in more lineups as a result of this for me. I don't know exactly why. I guess maybe some of the Memphis guys projecting a little bit fringier. That ended up having Bones Highland show up in more lineups. Also, I thought I was going to get to more of Javon Small than what I did, but I've got 10% of Small overall now. Still sub 10% of Burton. See, who's my most rostered player from Memphis? Still Jerome. Jerome number 1, Ty Jerome number 2. 3, Cam Spencer. Interesting. All right. Were there any other questions here? Not at the moment. So I'm going to upload these lineups because that's always a pertinent part of the process. And then we got that question from Almost Made about looking at the Showdown slate for later. So I'm going to sim that out on my computer here in front of me. And then if there's no other questions from you guys, I think we'll call it a night. A little bit of a smaller slate here on a Friday night. But I've got sims running right now for the late night Showdown slate. And also looks like the second half of the Clemson game just started because those bets came off the board here. See if I turn the other filter back on and just show all of the games. See how many bets there are. Yeah, pretty good amount. Pretty good amount of bets here. Yeah. 9-7 is the score of the Nets-Knicks game with 4 minutes left in the first quarter. Okay. DeAnthony Melton over 2.5 threes. That's plus 140 on BetMGM. Minus 110 on FanDuel. Minus 115 on DraftKings. If you're looking for a live bet, DeAnthony Melton over 2.5 threes looks pretty good. And as this sim finishes, last call for you guys. 50% off. Odd Shopper. Today is the final day of this sale. If you want to check out our betting tools over at Odd Shopper, use the promo code LBL50. Get you 50% off and your first week free as well. So take advantage of that before the end of the day. All right. So multiply, but this is not even close. Nikola Jokic is showing up in about half of my top lineups in the multiplier option, and there's nobody else in more than 10% of lineups. Just under 10% of Scotty Barnes, Jakob Poeltl, RJ Barrett, Brandon Ingram. But Nikola Jokic overall, which shouldn't be stunning, he is by far the top-looking multiplier option for the Showdown slate for today. Actually, in total, if I add up the amount of exposure I get to Jokic in the captain and the flex spot, it's over 90%. So closer to 100% of Nikola Jokic than I am to 50% of Jokic by a pretty overwhelming amount. Some of the top flex options from this game, we've got Scotty Barnes, Brandon Ingram. If you're looking to save salary, we've got Sandro Mamukavalishvili. He's showing up a decent amount as the best value option. If you're looking for a contrarian value option, Bruce Brown, sub 10% projected owned and showing up in 30% of lineups. So it looks like a good contrarian play. And then one other chalk option you could go to save salary would be Jamal Shed. So your chalk option save salary, Jamal Shed, Sandro Mamukavalishvili, and then a contrarian option to save salary, that was Bruce Brown. If you're going to go contrarian at captain, I guess Poeltl. He's showing up in 8% of lineups in the Sims with 4% ownership in the multiplier spot. Nothing else too much of note from that. Any final questions, guys, before we wrap up for the night? Let's see. Good greens. When do MLB prices start? We are targeting, I don't want to make any false promises, but we are targeting before the end of the night. I would say at the latest by Monday, but it should be either like tonight or sometime over the weekend. Should be anyway. Jack off. No, there's just the basketball games of the basketball games have all locked on the main slate. We hit on the Showdown slate. There's no college basketball games in break for us to easily look for some live bets here. We just hit our time here. So, all right, guys, that is going to do it for us here. Cards, good luck to you as well. Good luck. Guys, have a great night. If you didn't do it, like the video, subscribe to the YouTube channel. I'll see you back here on Sunday. I'm with EMAC on Sunday night, NBA Live Before Lock. So see you guys on Sunday with EMAC. Good luck. Later, guys.